So what is the leaven of Herod? In Mark chapter 8, verse 15, Jesus says, "Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of Herod." So what does that mean? Is that one thing? Is that two things? Are they different? There's a little bit of controversy of that, and we're going to discuss that. But first, before we get started, a little bit about this channel. Here we share good thoughts about good words. And on Fridays, I host a live Bible study on Instagram at Race to Walk. And then I publish 2 videos a week. I publish a video about books, and then I publish that Bible study video with some study aids. But sometimes I publish a 3rd video like this one. So if you'd like to get updates about new videos, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you get updates about those new videos. And you can also follow me at Race to Walk on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, whichever social media platform you like best. So I actually have an in-depth Bible study on the parable of the leaven, and I've linked to that if you want to watch the full thing. But this right here, we're just going to be talking about the leaven of Herod. Now, I did another short video on the leaven of the Pharisees, and I'll link to that if you want to watch that. But one of the key passages of understanding what the writers are referring to as when they mean leaven is a passage in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. And I'm going to start in verse 6. Now, as I mentioned in that other short video, Paul wrote this to the church at Corinth when there was some sexual sin in the church, and he's basically telling them that they need to address this. In verse 6, "You're boasting about this is terrible. Don't you realize that this sin is like a little yeast that spreads through the whole batch of dough? Get rid of the old yeast." This is also referred to as leaven in other translations. "By removing this wicked person from among you. Then you will be like a fresh batch of dough made without yeast, which is what you really are. Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed for us. So let us celebrate the festival, not with the old leaven of wickedness and evil, but with the new leaven of sincerity and truth." Now, the New Living Translation translates that as bread, but the actual text, it's leaven. And so we see there that there is this, it's really referring to the spirit that's permeating a community or permeating us individually. And so we're to get rid of the spirit or leaven of wickedness and evil and replace it with the spirit of sincerity and truth. So from that we know that this is a spirit that somebody is operating in. Now, in Matthew chapter 16, verse 6, this account is given in all 3 of the Gospels, but the Gospel writers actually relay it a little bit differently. So in Matthew chapter 16, verse 6, it says, "Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees." Mark chapter 8, 15, as I said, is "Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of Herod." And Luke chapter 12, verse 1, it says, "Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees." And he states very clearly what that is, which is their hypocrisy. So going back to Matthew and Mark, and it says Matthew says, "Beware the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees." Mark says the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. And in this translation, it actually makes it more clear that he's talking about 2 separate things. What is going on here? Is Matthew and Mark, are they relaying it differently? Are they talking about it differently? So the thing is that we have to understand is what the situation was at the time in Judea. So Judea was a province of Rome at the time, and Herod, we know that Herod the Great was over Judea when Jesus was born. He died shortly after that. The region of Judea was split, and his sons were placed in power over. Herod did not have any legitimate right to rule over Judea. He did not have ancestral right to be the king of Judea. He was appointed to that position by Rome. He was only in that position because of the political structure that was in place at the time. Now, the Sadducees, it was really kind of the same sort of situation. The Sadducees were really the priestly class at the time. I have another Bible study where I'm talking about the rich man and Lazarus. That one we go into more depth about the backstory of the Sadducees and the drama going on about the high priest. Even the high priests at the time, which were from the group of the Sadducees, they were appointed to that position by Rome. Again, the high priests were supposed to be from the line of Aaron. The political power had put them there. And so when Jesus is saying, "Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of Herod." So as we talked about in that other short video, the leaven of the Pharisees, as Luke clearly states in chapter 12, verse 1, is their hypocrisy. They had the show of being religious, but really they were They didn't actually believe. They really weren't seeking after truth. They were just using that religious structure to oppress people. The leaven and Herod and the Sadducees, they were relying on the political power. So we have religious hypocrites and people who are basically just serving these earthly rulers, and they really weren't putting their trust in God. So this is something that I think we see today too. We have a lot of people that are putting their hope in political structures, and that really, we don't want to do that. That is having the leaven of the Sadducees or of Herod, because regardless of what is going on here in our country, God is still God, and we put our hope in Him, regardless of what comes. So that's just like a little short overview of the leaven of Herod. But again, I do have those 2 other Bible study videos that go into this in more depth. One is on the parable of the leaven, and the other one is on the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. So I will link to both of those so that you can watch both of those if you like. But thanks for watching. And if you found this video useful, be sure to share it with someone and like it, because that really helps this channel out. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.